We're going to go live. Okay. Good morning, everybody. It's Thursday, February 19th, 2026. It is 9:02 a.m. This is day 2 of the school district's annual budget hearings. On the agenda today, we have 2 districts. We're going to let West G go first because Karen's leg is going to drive her nuts if we don't. So you hobbled in up there.
I'll hobble in, hobble out.
You'll hobble in. So Kristen, if you could start with the numbers, please, on West G.
West Eagleville School turned in their 2027 budget, showing a beginning cash balance in their general fund of $12,103,713. They are estimating their revenue at $40,123,043, which the Budget Commission will consider. Estimated expenses, $40,127,629. Leaving an ending cash balance of $12,099,127. Permanent Improvement Fund has a beginning cash balance of $1,833,467, requesting revenue in the amount of $1 million, which the Budget Commission will consider. Expenses were projected at $2,733,467, leaving an ending balance of $100,000. Total millage for tax year 26-27, 4.5 inside general, 3.8 outside voted general, 4.79 in emergency levies. Total village 48.09. They do receive the benefit of some small manufactured home tax. Last year was approximately $36,156.
Would you like me to go first? Next slide, please.
Excited to see your chart.
You've seen these different names. So as I've done in past years, this is a map of the county and the related school districts. West G is indicated with the circle representing the 2023 sexennial. West G experienced in the Res Ag grouping 33.3% increase in property values. That was the highest in the county. I mean, that market was the strongest and therefore experienced the highest increase. This corresponded to 2 other phenomena that we monitor, and those are post-sexennial BOR hearings, which are complaints against valuation. People often think that that's where they go to get their taxes lowered. It's not, but there is a causal effect of that. The little number next to BOR is what your percentage of BOR hearing cases were in the year after the sexennial, which is the closest indicator to the sentiment of the taxpayers right after the sexennial occurred. And then the larger number is last year's percentage. So you dropped from the year prior, which I think is a good. I will point out though that the volume of BORs last year was very low. I think we were a third of what we anticipated. We were right around 400 hearings, and we anticipated 1,200. So those percentages are a little misleading because you're dealing with a pretty small set of numbers. In comparing to the other districts, we indicate both your student count is down just a little bit from the state numbers that we got, but your attendance is, I think, the highest in the county at 94.1%, which I just put that up there. I thought it was interesting, probably not controversial, so I put it up there. Next slide, please. Your territory is the highest valued territory in the county. Your assessed values, your valuations for 2025 were a little bit over $1.2 billion of property value. That represented a change year over year of 3.3%. Actually, the percent increase was spread out over both the res and the commercial and public utilities. Next slide, please. Your taxing in your district, you rank 5th in raw millage at 48.09. You rank 3rd in effective millage, converting it to today's money at 25.83 mils. Next slide, please. This is how this is how enrollment is ranked throughout the county. You can see that county overall student enrollment in public schools are down about 6.6% over 5 years. Next slide. This is your particular district at 5.5%. I did look at it post the merger with West G. It's down a little bit higher than that. I think the merger targeted on the state report around the 2021-2022 school year. I'm not sure that our numbers exactly align, but it's close. Next slide, please. Compared to other districts, there's where you rank. But you're kind of in the middle of the pack with percentage below the average for the county. Nonetheless, I think the trend overall is concerning for all schools because the trend is down. It's not unique to Geauga, clearly. The state is experiencing similar reported numbers. Next slide, please. I took your general fund submission and then I adjusted for any change that we may have found when we certify the revenue. In your case, we had none. That's somewhat unusual. Usually we're off by a couple of bucks and we have to adjust. And then on the right-hand column, I indicate whether that trend over last year's same submitted numbers are up, down, or the same. So it's a little misleading because it's not what you actually had last year, it's what you submitted last year. So you got to kind of take this with a grain of salt. It turns out you're on a flat scale, which makes sense. Your revenue and your expenditures are basically flat. They're the same two numbers. Therefore, your ending balance isn't changed much over your beginning balance. Your cash as a percent of expenditures predicted for the ensuing budget year is estimated to be at 30.1%. That's down from what you expected last year for that same period. Your general fund revenue per student is just a little bit south of $21,000, and it's the same for expense. You're actually very tightly matched. Most of them have a wide discrepancy. Typically, your expenses are running greater than your revenue, which is an issue. Your cash carryover per student is at $6,318. Next slide, please. And then this is how those three numbers or metrics rank when compared to the other districts in the county. Yeah, the red and the blue are pretty, I mean, they're trending pretty much the same across the board. You're in the middle of the pack with the dollar value per, or the cash per student. I don't believe it's excessive, certainly, and I think the trend is in a downward approach, so you have to consider that. Next slide, please. This is a chart from the state which indicates the cash as an expense, as a percent of expense for the general fund. It's for the last 5 years. The blue line, the dark blue line, is your district. The red line is the county, and the green line is the state average as of this reporting period. And you can see you've done a huge course change. So you've gone from being well above the average to being below the average, which is what it is. That is the indicator. Next slide. Oh, I'll go back a slide for a minute. At the upper right-hand side, I do present the 2025 number is the one charted. And then I took your current appropriation submitted and I calculated what a 2026 number would look like if you performed exactly as you anticipate. And we know that doesn't ever happen. You will be about 31.2, and then your prediction is, of course, changed downward again to 30.2. And again, I take the 2026 and the budget year number with a grain of salt because it's all future budget. Next slide. This is how you rank compared to the other districts in the county. The red line is the new state average. And a point of interest is the state average last year when we had these hearings was 46.2%. You can see what's happened across the state. Cash is being drawn out of schools at a record level. Dropping that many margin points, in my opinion, is I don't want to say cause of concern. It's pretty significant. There's definitely been a course change. You're right at the state, right below the state average, which I don't have a problem with. And for everyone that's below it, there's somebody above it, so you gotta be kind of careful. Next slide, please. I did also look at your PI summary. I mean, you're spending everything that's in it, so you're going to have a very little carryover anticipated. It's 3.6%, which I don't believe is any cause of concern at all. Next change. Next. This is a summary of your submission. 1 mil for your district is producing the highest in the county because your values are the highest, your property values, and that's at a little over $1.25 million per mil. New construction did increase some of your collections by about $7,500 in certain levies that are eligible for new construction. You are experiencing an increase in inside millage that continues. That will be adjusted going forward, as we talk in a minute. It was 1.3 million. I believe the state is looking for a retrospective recalc of some of these items, which is going to affect it, but the source of that revenue should be supplemented by another means, which we've yet to determine that that's actually going to happen, but that's what they're telling us. Your levies are set to expire, and you have, because of some House bill changes, some transitional opportunities, let's say. You are permitted, my understanding, and Natalie, correct me if I'm wrong, she's done the research. You are permitted, because emergency levies are no longer a permitted levy. You can transition those to up to 5-year fixed sum levies. That is a lever that you have available to you. And obviously you're going to have to consider those ones expiring next year. So that's on your horizon. You are now above the floor based on the adjustment at 20 windmills. You're going to go much higher than that with these emergencies now being counted in the floor. Again, this is old data from the state. State is not on the same timeline as we are because your reporting cycle is somewhat delayed. I think you're going to be well above the floor. You've got 6.6 mils of emergency. You're going to jump 3 or 4 mils. Yeah. I did note that I do a previous year to reported appropriation year revenue increase over expenditure increase, and you can see what's happened. You're burning a lot of money out of the general, and we know the projects you've been putting in. I think the well, the stuff you did, tons of a roof, all kinds of stuff, and we can get into that in a minute. The thing I did want to make you aware of, and I think you're aware of this, Karen, the state has realigned the sexennial schedules. We were in the dominant schedule, which was the A schedule, which is the first group to do reappraisals. That was scheduled to be 2029 as our next reappraisal. To balance the equation, because it was very imbalanced. The first group was, I think, 60% of the counties, and then it trickled down with the next two. So the state overall saw a huge spike in the first year and then a little bit lower spike. They want to level that. I think that's a good move. It's one of the few things I think that they actually thought through. They're moving me to the second group. So Geauga will no longer be on the A group. We will be on the B group. That group is moving to 2030, which gives us 1 more year without having a reappraisal. The only thing I could think of would have been better was moving to the C group, which would give us 2 more years. But you don't get always what you ask for. I know you did submit. We saw we had some issues with some of the submission on the revenue side. We asked you to take a look at those numbers. You provided an updated other revenue number, which because it was post January 20th, the Budget Commission has to accept that or make that change to your budget. My recommendation is that we accept that change so that your revenue numbers align with our revenue numbers. And I see no material issues with your budget, and I recommend approving.
As we go to the blue and white sheet, I just need an additional clarification. 2025 on the general fund, anticipated expenditures, we're going to be 31 million. Ended up being most of that was
the transfer.
Yeah. I wish there was a better way to.
Yeah, I mean, in our forecast, it's below the line. It's not an expenditure line. It's below the line, so they have to report it out. So because it's not a true expenditure of, and when they go to calculate the expenditure per pupil, they don't put those transfers in there. So
It's such a novel.
it is, and it shows up when we do our presentations to the public, and I do my forecast. It shows up in our graphs, and we explain regarding. We then spend time on the capital budget, saying here's what we spent that money on. So we are.
I think we also this year we're experiencing a different accounting for the emergency components. They required you to move them into the general fund and report them different.
Yes.
So that's going to create a bubble.
It does create.
In our reporting going forward after this cycle.
So now they'll all be put into the general.
So Chris will ask you this question in about 2 years.
I'll put a note.
That's why that's why the right way. That's why the report would have occurred.
Yeah, I thought it was great. A fantastic turnaround from where you were at. I think you're right in the sweet spot with your cash carryover. Even if it was a little higher, I wouldn't have a problem with that.
We'll start deficits. We start deficit spending in 27. So it will not.
Well, and then obviously I'm concerned with, you you got to convert that emergency levy, and the voters are going to have to do that, and that could be a big issue for you. So, so I hope the message to your folks, at least me, is, amazing turnaround. You aren't hoarding money. You have the appropriate cash balances now, and you invested in capital expenses, and really did a great job. So I commend you for that.
Natalie, correct me, if they were to convert, let's say, an emergency levy to a fixed sum levy, that 5-year period it will continue rollback for that 5-year period, correct?
Yes, that's right. They're receiving rollback on the original levy. Yes, which they were.
Got it. So I mean, that's
So
the
that's
pitch of the
good. I mean,
taxpayer, right? Just-
Yeah.
Yes.
You're saving 12.5.
You're saying,
12.5%. If we have to go to a new levy, if you don't pass this one, we have to go to a new levy.
right,
I mean,
and
the
I,
problem is our timing of that levy is right. Could be at the same time we're doing a constitutional amendment of getting rid of property. So, this,
Yeah.
that no
there's
good
no,
time.
I know.
It's not a good time.
And for the record, I think you're one of the few school districts that I think were affected by almost every house bill that
We hit
was
it.
passed. I mean, it's like a lottery ticket that you won. And lottery ticket from hell, maybe.
Yeah, but we did, and that's, that was the point of the property tax reforms.
Yeah.
So,
And
Yeah, I think you can make the case to your residents that you need to convert that levy, and it's in their best interest to convert the levy because of the 12.5% savings.
we will
Cost them money.
it will cost them money not to,
Yes.
because we still have to have a levy.
And now that you've made the capital investments, you show a need for that revenue.
Right.
That was, I think, our issue before. But you've corrected that. So,
Yeah, it's the 9-year water treatment. system.
yeah. Well, the middle school roof too.
The middle school roof, now we're doing the high school roof.
Yeah.
The track's done. Other track will be coming up, and then we did the football field, and so now we'll have a new facility tied to.
Make sure your communications are very simple so that everybody understands. This is a pocketbook issue. It will cost you money. It saves the state money.
Save state money. They won't have to.
That's not our
reimburse us.
concern.
state will actually encourage you to not do it because they're going to benefit 12.5%.
We are looking for people to be on our levy committee. It's professional.
I believe they are.
We'll talk about that later.
I will second Auditor Walter his motion to approve.
Yeah, we have to,
Well, you're making them.
we have to
Make them,
approve with it. We have to approve the budget with the modification.
That's your motion. I'll second.
Yes.
Yes.
Aye.
And you're welcome for no snow coming.
I am so thankful for the no snow.
We'll take full credit for that.
I appreciate.
Even though you had to walk, I think, a mile
Your
and a half to get to
handicap
the
spot
end.
is at the very end of the,
And it's not mine.
yeah.
So Karen, when I wrote down the damn first grade,
Uh-huh.
on crutches, there was one boy, I was faster on crutches than he was.
That is,
Is that-
We'll try that
is
today.
yeah, we'll try that one
Is that
today.
true, Chris?
That is, I wanted to say it was from a skiing accident or something.
Probably really dramatic.
Something late.
You're in the loop.
I was in the luge, I was, doing something fabulous.
There's a
That's
scary
crazy.
part.
That's crazy.
I've never seen anything like
First. Yeah.
Sit down.
Don't go back.
Just give it.
I'll just grab your bag.
And your resolution. Okay.
Just kidding.
That's true.
Stubborn woman.
Oh, yeah.
This is sure is. That's not true. I work with you. Well, we do work well, but I work with both of you. And he's fabulous. I wanted to say, we're so grateful for all the work that you've done for us. And through my 10 years being here, it's been very. So thank you so much. And
Thank you. Very much
thanks.
appreciated.
Good to see you.
Yeah.
Bye, everyone.
Good to see you.
Okay, Berkshire, you're
Yeah,
up.
yeah, I was gonna-
Good to see you. I'll see you.
Right.
Weeks, yeah. We're there to go. We go forward. But our That's a little overlapping.
Bye, man.
Thank you. Okay, this is the 2026-7 school year for Berkshire. Kristen, can you start with the numbers, please?
Berkshire Local Schools submitted their 2027 budget with a beginning cash balance in their general fund of $2,001,509.73. They requested revenue in the amount of $22,831,565, which the Budget Commission will consider. Their estimated expenses were at $24,698, leaving an ending cash balance of $708,376.73. The bond levy fund has a beginning cash balance of $393,705.09. They requested revenue in the amount of $1,228,571.82, which the Budget Commission will round it up to the $1,228,572. Estimated expenses are at $1,216,106.28, leaving an ending balance of $406,170.81. Total millage for tax year 26-27, 4.5 inside general, 45.3 outside voted, 2.45 in the bond for a stub of 52.25. They also have Bergen Public Library of 1.7 and a total millage of 53.95. They have manufactured home revenue, which was estimated at roughly 112,000 for tax year 20.
Okay, we'll go first. Next slide. Berkshire's identified in blue, one of the 5 school districts in the county, fully contained in the county. Your res ag sexennial change to valuation was averaged at about 31%. You saw a first year VOR percent hearing ratio of 17.1%, and that dropped to 4% last year. So, and again, the same comment as I held with the other districts. I think we have to be careful with percentages because the volume last year was incredibly low, lower than anticipated. Your school your school attendance is at 93.3. Your student count is at 1295. Next one. Your school assessed value is at $500 million, and you that was representative of about a 5% change over the prior year reporting. Next slide, please. You ranked 4th in the county for full rate millage at 52.25 mils. You also ranked 4th as effective mills, converting that to 22.458 mills effective. Next slide. And overall school enrollment is down in the county as represented by this graph. Next slide. You are up slightly year over year at 5 additional students compared to the reporting year of 2023-2024. That's an anomaly. Next slide, please. Overall, across the county, we're experiencing a general decline of 6.6% over a 5-year window. You're pretty flat, which is really phenomenal considering everybody in the state. I mean, most people in the state are not seeing flat. Flat is the new good, I guess. But nonetheless, you have a relatively flat enrollment. Next slide. Your adjusted general fund numbers are the beginning balance is down. However, you know, I think it's clear that your expenses are exceeding your certified revenue again this year, as predicted last year. Your estimated cash as a percent of expenses are going to be projected to be 2.9%. That's relatively low. Your general fund revenue per student is at $17,600. Expenses are at $18,600. Again, that's your expenses are more than your revenue, and your cash carryover per student is incredibly low at $547 per student. Next slide, please. Comparing it, I think your revenue and expenses per student are in line with the other districts. Your general fund cash carryover per student is obviously quite low. Again, the trend here is the dark blue is your district, the red is the county average, and the green is the state average. And acknowledging that the state average dropped from 46.2 to 32.1 in 1 year, you dropped from 18.8% to 12.5% reported in 2025. At the top, you're anticipating from your current appropriations for 2026 that you will be at the 8.5% in the next term out, and you anticipate in your budget year to be roughly at 3%. Next slide. This is how you rank compared to the other school districts in the county in both the current appropriation year as well as the budget year in question, and you can see the trend. Comparing it to the state average, you're well below the state average. And again, the state average dropped considerably from the prior year, which you were also low. Next slide. 1 mil for you is just over $500,000 in collection at 100%. New construction contributed about $5,000 to some levies in 2026. Your 2023 revaluation did increase your inside millage by about $500,000. However, you're going to see the same experience that we talked about with other schools, in that there is some work underway by the legislature to cap that to inflation, and that going forward is going to have a significant effect on your additional revenue of unvoted increase. You do have a 3.65 mil bond levy that's currently on the books. You are currently sitting at the floor at 20 mils. I don't anticipate that changing due to any legislative change of the floor calculation. Your comparative revenue in the general fund from the prior year to the past year is increased by about $750,000, and your expenses increased by 1.6 million. So again, that trend is unhealthy financially, but nonetheless, it is what it is. And again, reporting to all school districts, our sexennial has been moved out 1 additional year in the horizon. Therefore, we would see less of an effect of that changing people's property values and thereby their taxes to be lengthened out to 2030 instead of 2020. So my recommendation is to approve the budget as submitted.
These are very dangerous times, especially for you. Yeah. That you have to add. It's almost appropriate, but very troublesome. I feel what the legislature is going to do next week, and they may change that again. No such thing as at this. You have to go shared with presentation. You need to convince your voters this is very much of an issue. It's a simple problem. They don't solve, if they don't support you now, it will cost them more. Do not make focus on the old gym ropes. You used to take a wall and put it on the desk. That's what you and the board and the whole board, they got to do it. You're the pointy end of the spear, but they all have to make the case. But the state emergency funding for control. So, Virgil was here yesterday. Short conversation. Participating in our schools. 50 kids.
Very few, 1 or 2 kindergartners, but they typically only stay for kindergarten.
then they go to their own schools, which they pay for. But if they came to you. Correct. How many kids might that be? Coming to? 100? I'm not sure.
It's definitely the Amish community has grown in our district because they continue to move left, especially in Bergen itself.
They're moving to where the land's.
Troy too. A lot of them moving to Troy.
So I'm very concerned. I'm not at all comfortable with your cash balance. And coming from me, that is rare. But there is a lot at stake here.
Yeah, I don't have any issues. The estimates and the actuals are much closer together. You did a great job on that. I don't have any issues at all with your motion. Second, yes.
Yes.
Jim Rhodes.
Nobody here knows Joe is too old.
Very.
You heard about it. You didn't know it.
Hey, thanks, folks.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Take care.
So,
See you.
You're fine.
thank you. Oh, my gosh. Broker. Jim Broker.
Oh, thanks. More than that, man. So, close the Thank you.
Ready?
Shame.
Check on. Yeah, make sure it's still working. We only have two people on and they're both not public. Any public comment?
Questions, Sarah?
Kristen, did the microphone work this time?
It did, but it was too far away from Chris, so I couldn't hear everything Chris said. So I don't know. You guys might need a third microphone.
Chris.
That was intended that way.
Was
We-
that intentional? Yeah.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. it was. You were very, why are you so quiet?
Because I feel bad. Normally,
Are we all?
this is such a different year. And it's,
Well, here's the thing. I think residents are the ones speaking. But our job is to test the budget submission. It's not to convey or to determine whether or not a levy should pass or fail. That's what taxpayers do. And I think, and I'm not citing any particular school district, but generally across the state, certain taxing entities have created an environment making it very difficult for them to get the public support that they need. And that is affecting their ability to perform their function. That's the reality. That's why this initiative to abolish property taxes has roots. So frustrating. I don't disagree with you that the numbers are worrisome, but I don't know that our solutions historically have always been go to the taxpayers when there's a problem. They should be the last people we go to, not the first people. There are other options available. And those include what you talked about yesterday, I think Jim talked about, and got his head and got darts thrown out of people's eyes at it. Sometimes merging with other entities is a cost-effective solution. You have to present those options to taxpayers and they weigh in.
in 2 years' time, if their spending methodology maintained the same, they will be in emergency status and the state will cut them. And we know that's not good. The last time that happened was
But if the property tax abolishment goes through, we are going to shift all of our responsibility to be controlled by the state. And that's not good either. So those aren't the only two options that are on the table that are available. There, I would have thought that with this growing angst of the public, whether it's 30% of the public, 50% of the public, or 90% of the public, I don't know. You won't know till the ballots come in. There would be a lot more conversation coming from taxing entities of different ways of skinning the cat. How do we get the same service out to our taxpayers for less money? Do we do that by joining forces? Do we do that by reducing services? Do we do that by changing our paradigm? Do we do more virtual access to things? All those conversations are necessary. Budget Commission doesn't have that. We are being tasked with an incredible load as it is. They've got to speak up. They've got to become part of the solution, not just be the victim.
But I think a couple things. One, the two districts that we had a huge issue with cash balances wasn't the smoothest road. Some of it was at the point of the van end, but they're in a great place now. They did a very effective turnaround. We had to help one along with the getting the cash balance down, but they invested in capital projects and they have their cash balances in a great place. They've done a great job. I think when you look at, since this has been going on the last several years, look at the districts. So I'm just going to take 3 districts that all had issues on the ballot, tax increases. Okay, Kenston, West G. Well, West G wasn't an increase; it's a conversion. Kenston, West G. Right, they had a ballot issue also. 2 of them lost bad, and it was ugly.
Some multiple times.
Yes, and one of them passed.
Yeah,
and the one that passed was the district that didn't have the 20 mil floor issue. It didn't have a giant unvoted tax increase sprung upon the residents.
Exactly right.
I don't think that's a coincidence.
I don't think it is either.
The other thing is, I mean, Kenston removed, as a member of the Budget Commission looking at their budget here, they needed that money. They needed that capital money. They made the case for it. Their facilities need the money. And their budget, they had the best budget this year, Mike, out of all. Well, I thought they were all good, but I thought they had the best one. And they were rewarded for that. Hey, we need this money. Here's why. We've been effectively managing it. And we didn't get some huge windfall, gobble it up, and then come back to you for more money. And theirs passed. And the ones that failed were the ones that had this 20 mil floor issue. I think that was the problem. There were some communication issues, but people don't like it when their taxes skyrocket.
You're right.
When they feel that that's the one thing they have control. Because that is the one tax we really have control.
And to your point, 66% of the schools prior to this HR bill change, 66% of the schools in the state of Ohio were at the floor. Why is everybody surprised that people are upset? We saw it with 2 that were at the floor in our county. Across the state, more than half of the schools were having the same exact experience with their taxpayer. Taxpayers felt cheated because they didn't get a vote. Whether they needed it or not is irrelevant. They want to be asked. They don't want to be told. And I think that's a legitimate argument for a taxpayer to have. And I think if it falls on deaf ears that this is owed us, which is the pushback we were getting, this is owed us. No, it's not. It's taxpayer money. Never becomes yours. It's always the taxpayers. Until you actually spend it, it's the taxpayers. And I think that blew up in a lot of the poor people's faces because they were used to them. Now, I mean, one of the 2 is adjusted because the changes to the House bill just took West G off the floor instantly.
Yeah, but Berkshire's on the floor. They've got the income tax. They've got a unique situation. But they had that huge windfall, and where did it go? They just gobbled it all up and spent it. And now they're Chris is worried about their cash balances. I almost fell out of my chair. So I did too. You kind of got to. I mean, that West G got that windfall and we took a chunk of it away, but then they invested in capital expenses.
And although we're talking about schools because we're hearing school budgets,
Yeah.
I think we're gonna have, this conversation is gonna be year long because I've seen townships with the same challenge. Is any township investigating fire district? Is a single township in Geauga? I don't hear anything. There's something wrong when we're not having the conversation. For some reason, you say the word fire district, and everybody's ire goes up. Why? What? You're just talking about it. You're not doing anything. And the same is true with police districts, there's there's all kinds of avenues that you can change the methodology of taxing that benefits the taxpayer. And I'm offended that we're the pointing of the spear for years that we're the bad guys. Now all of a sudden, we're the ones supposed to be driving the equation. I don't think that's our role.
No, I guess, switching to. Listen, and I get daggers from a lot of these firefighters, they don't like me because, but I come at this from I'm not a fire department guy. I come from this looking at the numbers. The fact that we have all these fire departments is insane, and how much money they're taking from the taxpayers to have all these little, fire departments throughout the county. It makes no sense. It's not economically feasible. It is driving a lot of these issues on the township level with property taxes. But what's frustrating is I bring up a not even saying they should do it, just saying, hey, you lose another 17% over the next 5 years. You got to be thinking about consolidating. And I'm the devil. And you bring that up to a fire department.
You get the same.
Look at all the problems Auburn's having with their fire department, how much money they're spending. And Bainbridge has that great facility. What are we doing? And Troy's fire department was destitute at one point. I mean, they were having a ton of problems. And you've got, the fire department right next door to them. Why aren't nobody ever talks about it? And I think that is what is adding fuel to the fire.
It is.
Property, because the Irish people, when you talk to them, because I watch those things online. It's not healthy, but I watch them online.
It isn't.
But, their whole thing is, they're talking about replacing the taxes. They need to make cuts. They need to consolidate. I see a little bit where they're coming from because nobody ever talks about consolidating the fire department. And so from their point of view, the only way to make it happen is to do this draconian, measure of just cutting off all the funding. I'm not saying they're running. That's a bad idea too. But if they can't force those conversations with what they're doing, I understand where they're coming from, and I understand the frustration because I'm frustrated. I think all of us are.
And Jim, the problem is everybody wants to have the conversation with all the fire chiefs. That's not where the conversation has to be had. The legislative branch of government is the authority that determines how the fire function operates. The trustees ought to be having the conversation. The mayors and councils should be having the conversation. We've reduced the conversation to the affected parties. Well, they're biased by definition. You don't go to the source and say you need to change something. That's so difficult to overcome. And yet everybody's hands off. Nobody wants to touch it at the elected levels. That's true across the entire state, not unique to Geauga. I don't know why. I went down to the OTA conference a couple of weeks ago. I didn't see any classes on educating trustees and fiscal officers on how to approach consolidated services. You would think that's what you would do. No, it's all about minutia. It's like, no. The branch that we elected is the one we have to hold accountable. They then appoint people that run those divisions. They shouldn't be the big picture people. They should be operating the domain of expertise. So I'm getting frustrated that everyone's looking for that magic. What's the magic? There is no magic. The magic is we have to start thinking differently. And it's not going to get easier with time. As we get closer to that November deadline, the pressure points are going to get greater, not less. The county, for example, why aren't they considering what they can do to reduce some of the load when you've got a mental health group that gets taxed, a JFS group that gets taxed, a Department on Aging group that gets taxed? You mean we can't find any common ground between those three disciplines? That we can consolidate anything? There's no conversation.
I
But,
have 21 road departments in the county.
exactly. Why?
Right?
I know,
16 plus,
all the plow trucks, all the spares,
plus the county.
all the salt bins. We're paying for all this overhead because we want to create this fight dump for some reason. And I get, I want to be able to call 911 and get immediate response too. But that comes with a price, and that it gets to be a break-even position where you go, well, maybe this is not the best approach. And it's troubling. And then we put the same burden of requirement on the tiny townships that have virtually no money. I mean, I was just out in Thompson last night. They've been absolutely devastated by this requirement of having to have a cybersecurity policy when they don't have any cybersecurity measurement at all. Well, how do we write a policy? You basically have to write a policy. We have nothing. Well, who's going to do that and then turn it into your insurance carrier? So in order to have a cybersecurity policy, you have to have somebody over their umbrella. Well, if you call a contractor, they'd be writing half of their general fund money to a contractor. So you would have to do it different. It's so concerning to me because there are so many places that we have not been proactive. And
They've never been in a position where they had to think out that.
no,
They've always had considerable largesse. Now, you don't. And did you have a chance to talk to that guy? Collecting signatures?
I did not. He was a
It was
busy
on
man.
by the time I went.
Well, I was surprised he was there.
Did you talk to him?
No, I just don't want to be attacked. But I thought it was interesting that somebody was there.
Would you go and introduce yourself? You're the treasurer.
No, I don't tell that to anybody.
Smart.
That's why I don't go to the fair anymore. People are like, I'm okay with that. We have, because the county is so lucky to be well off. Most other counties don't have it. And yet we're letting the legislature through this election petition control how we operate. It's just part of being, they don't need our 55,000 votes. I was surprised to see the guy collecting signatures. Still, I'm not getting any indication that they're gathering signatures.
I was just reading a group discussion where people were talking about property taxes, cost of living, and there were 4 different comments that's why I moved to Geauga County. I wanted lower taxes. And yet, there's people in Geauga County who think the taxes are too high. If you compare our taxes to Concord, to Cuyahoga County, just go north 20 miles, 15 miles, Concord, their taxes are incredibly high. And I'm not saying that means we should be okay. We think we have a problem. We are like so low on the totem pole compared to these counties that are really mad and upset. Lake County, no wonder it came out of Lake County. The equivalent valued house in Lake County is at least 40 or 50% higher in tax, at least. And who could tolerate that if we're having trouble here? So I think you're right. We are very fortunate. But even we, as being fortunate, have room to move, and we should. But how are we going to get the entire state to see this? We got legislatures that don't know how to what inside millage means. Yeah, it's like, good God.
The county level people.
That's true.
Okay,
It's going to be interesting.
Do you have any other business to be brought before us?
We just spent more time talking about this than doing the hearings. Public,
We should be in the legislature.
I think, yeah, I think the train should happen.
you have no questions.
Sorry you came out for this. So we can hear our
We
rant.
will never have another hearing.
This has been an unusual.
Miraculous. Okay.
Sarah, are we good? I got a lot of stuff to do.
Oh, well, we'll go back and get our bonbons out, finish watching our the news channel.
I didn't even finish my, okay,
We're adjourned.
by the way, the
9:51
for the birds.